Joining us now to try and break down what really are the provisions of the budget and how we should better understand them, the Secretary of the Department of Economic Affairs, Mr. Ajay Seth, Mr. M. Nagaraju is the DFS Secretary also joining us on the panel. Mr. Seth, let me begin with a big announcement that has been made as far as this budget is concerned, and that is, of course, as far as the tax slabs are concerned. What is the primary agenda behind this? Is it to encourage people towards a new tax regime with lower slabs? Is it to increase or boost spending? Was it a multi-pronged strategy, for instance? What really was the thought process behind this?
Two parts. One, what is needed for the economy and what are the expectations of the people? Yes, there are expectations. There were issues around what our overall consumption levels are. Consumption in the past 1 year has grown about 7%. So an idea is that how the consumption and more investment were to happen, and that gives a positive cycle. The second part is expectation of the people, especially the middle class, those earning incomes up to say 1 lakh rupees a month, 12 lakh rupees a year from a salary. They're expecting that a significant relief in their tax incidence. So that's what the budget tries to provide, meet the overall economic need as well as the expectations of the middle class.
Right. Mr. Nagaraju, this is something that we don't see very often, this kind of a massive cut as far as the slabs are concerned. Of course, it's going to put money into the pockets of the common man, the taxpayer, and across the board. In fact, it is going to make a lot of difference to the salaried class in particular. How are you looking at this move?
No, we are looking at to increase our deposits in the banks so that we'll be able to lend more to the industry, MSME, and also agriculture sector, which will lead to more employment and more growth.
All right. So one of the other aspects that I want to talk to Mr. Seth is about the fiscal deficit target. An ambitious target has been set. Of course, we have seen opposition talking about this in negative terms because they say that this has negatively impacted in terms of the goals that were set and what has been achieved. How do you look at the ambitious targets that the government is setting as far as the fiscal deficit is concerned?
So fiscal deficit, one has to see what has been the track record of the government. 2020-21, when the fiscal deficit has gone 9%, the very next year, 21, Finance Minister announced that in 4 years from now, by 25-26, we'll reach less than 4.5%. And where we are expected to reach this year, 4.8 and 4.4% next year. So track record, achieving more than what was promised, at the same time giving enough stimulus to the economy is what our track record, government's track record has been. Moving forward, it is a flexible and a more transparent target, a roadmap which has been announced in the FRBM statement. Now target the primary variable, which is debt to GDP ratio, but do it in a manner so that the ability of the government to respond to economic needs does not get curtailed in that manner, and which is a perfectly doable one. And what gives us a confidence? Our track.
Right. Also, Mr. Nagaraju, want to bring in, how we earlier mentioned that 90% of the assets of the pension fund industry are concentrated in 3 players, SBI, LIC, UTI, and that requires a diversion. To promote this funding from pension funds to infrastructure, FMS proposed to extend the date of making investment by 5 more years. What's going to be the impact? How effective will this move be?
No, these 3 are big players, and we want more players to enter into the market. Now, we have a level playing field also existing. There is a level playing field, and the market regulator is there, pension regulator. We are actually trying to build a system whereby the pension funds are channel for long-term infrastructure development, and any entity, regulated entity, is interested that we will announce.
Right. Also, Mr. Seth, one of the things that's being pointed out, of course, what the government has spoken about new investments or additional investments when it comes to allocation to the health sector. Yet, when we look at it as a percentage of the budget, while in subsequent financial years, for the last 3 financial years, the percentage increased from 1.7 to 1.8 and then from 1.8 to 1.9. But as a percentage of the GDP, it continues to remain on 0.27%. So would you really say that in real terms, has there really been a huge increase when it comes to aspects such as health?
So one has to see that what has been the government overall spend in the health sector. It increased significantly during the COVID years, and thereafter it has been maintaining what has been the growth rate in the overall general government budget. A large part of expenditure on health sector is by the states, but a data which comes out very clearly that out-of-pocket expenses by citizens as a proportion to the total spend has been coming down. And that shows that the governments are in a position through programs like Ayushman Bharat, which are much more efficient schemes to help those who are in the most need of help, are working well.
Okay. So one of the things that is being spoken about, and I'm quoting from the statement that was given by former Finance Minister Mr. Chidambaram, he has said that some of the cruelest cuts were in allocations. I'm quoting exactly from his statement, from SC, ST, OBC and minorities. He's quoting the PM Anusuchit Jati Abhyuday Yojana, the PM Young Achiever Scholarship for OBC, EBC, DNTs, the Post-Matric Scholarship for SCs and Program for Development of STs. How would you respond to such a charge?
See, for each and every sector, and especially the ones which you have mentioned, the next year budget estimates are better than or higher than what the current year's budget estimates are. Some of these schemes are implemented, or several of these schemes are implemented through state governments. And as we are aware that for the past 2.5 years, governments have moved towards a single note of account, SNA accounts, and there are balances available here. So government money should be used when it goes from government consolidated fund to the beneficiary or to the investment. It should not remain getting parked in the bank accounts. So there is absolutely no there is no reduction what is being said, what is being inferred in the data.
Right. One of the key aspects also has been this huge, so one of the factors, fueling our growth has been huge investment as far as public sector is concerned in capital expenditure. That has this year gone up from 11.1 to 11.2 lakh crores compared to past year's budget estimates. The big question now is, now that the government has, put all of this, implemented all of this, how will this growth in infrastructure actually pan out? And what are the steps to encourage private sector investment as far as capex is concerned?
I'll draw your attention to what Finance Minister announced in July. And she had said that having brought capital expenditure as a proportion to GDP at a very high level, moving forward, our attempt would be to maintain it at that high level relative to GDP. That is what that level is. At least 3% of the GDP. Expecting states will spend another 3%. So 3 and 3 make 6. Plus another 3% will come from the private sector. Even in this budget, the capex to GDP ratio is 3.1%. And if we add what grants Government of India provides to state government for their capital expenditure, if you put it together, amount is 15.5 lakh crore, which is 4.2%, 4.3% of the GDP. Very, very significant number. But now coming to the private sector, how to facilitate it? Let's look at what this budget says. Each ministry of the government dealing with infrastructure would be asked to come out with a 3-year roadmap of public-private partnership, because they come out that these are the projects. Ex-ministry says that in 2 years from now, we will have this project coming to the market. Then the private sector makes up its mind whether it's worth their time to get into that. So it is a systemic way of facilitating, creating a demand, and then on the supply side, also creating conditions so the private sector can also participate. So it is a wholesome one wherein government does what government is expected to and create conditions for private sector to join the infrastructure story.
All right. Now, Mr. Nagaraju, earlier you've highlighted the need for an aggregator, for instance, to safeguard financial institutions against fraud, similar to the role that NPCI plays in banking. What are the models that you're looking at for such an aggregator, and how soon can we expect progress?
We are planning to have an agency which will be able to assess the preparedness of the financial institution, especially banks, to counter the cyber attack, frauds, cyber attacks, and then take measures to strengthen the systems in the banks. So this, the cyber agency, it will be a forum to be set up by all the financial institutions, which will advise, strengthen the systems available in the country.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Nagaraju and Mr. Seth, for joining us and explaining those particular points of the budget to our viewers.